No one can change the word of Allah except the people of the book. And if you think that makes some sense, there's an awful lot you must overlook. The Quran says obey the earlier books. Islamic apologists are a bunch of schnooks. It's This Week in Jihad, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the great David Wood with us. David, good morning, good evening, good afternoon.
How are you doing, sir?
David, I have never been better. This is the apex right here. And that is because I have been inspired. I have been desperately inspired by Yasmin Zohra. What's her name here? Yasmin Zohra Rubu from Irvine, California.
What's that? That crazy chick?
Yeah.
Is that crazy chick?
This is the craziest story I ever saw. This is Yasmin Zohra Rubu making her Nazi salutes. And she was out there Heil Hitlering, walking around in her hijab while walking her dog. Now, what's the first problem? What's the first problem here, David?
Well, the first glaring anomaly here is you've got a woman who's devout enough to be a hijabi, so she's wearing a hijab, and yet she has a dog. When Muhammad ordered his followers to kill dogs, later on he modified it so that you could have like a hunting dog and things like that. But as far as having a dog as a pet, this is the way it's been explained to me. They have no concept of having dogs as pets. You can have dog for a specific purpose, again, like a hunting dog or something like that, but not as just a pet.
That's right.
And she had a pet.
And there's more. But wait, there's more. We have that the unusual fact that when she's not wearing her hijab, Yasmin Zohra Rubu is an OnlyFans model who sells sexually related material on her Snapchat. And so you gotta...
I thought you were about to start putting up pictures, Robert, and I was going to be like, no. I'm out of here.
This is a family show, David. Family Jihad.
Here's her page right now.
No, it's a family jihad we got going here. And Zahra, but what I don't understand about Yasmin Zohra, sorry, not Zahra, Zohra Rubu, is what is the deal with the OnlyFans and the hijab? Can you try to unpack that?
What happens on OnlyFans stays on OnlyFans, Robert, until, of course, you start heiling Hitler, and then people look you up and figure out where you're from and stuff like that, and start posting it everywhere because you ticked off a bunch of people.
Yeah, precisely. What people don't realize oftentimes about Islamic culture and Islamic law is that it's all about appearances. That if you appear to be obeying the law, then you're done. If you can get away with breaking it, then that's perfectly fine as long as you don't get caught. And it really is a culture, because it's a culture of fear, it's a culture of hypocrisy. People are frightened into obeying, with all the stories, the lurid stories of torture and hellfire and all that. And so if you are used to that, numb to that, inured to that, maybe you don't even so seriously believe it, then it's just a matter of cultural conformity, which is ruthlessly enforced. Because, of course, a lot of people will think they're going to execute the wrath of Allah on you if you get out of line. And that also is allowed in Islamic theology. But if you can get away with not doing it, then you might think you're in the clear. I mean, get away with doing it and not getting caught. You might think, I'm good, because nobody's going to be beating me up or cutting off my head, and maybe you don't believe in the hellfire business, so no problem. There's a very huge amount of hypocrisy in this culture because it's actually the paradoxical result of the outward conformity, the insistence that everybody conform makes for a whole under the cover culture of disobedience, This is especially widespread in Iran. When I wrote the book years ago, The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran, I found multiple stories of how people would have these wild parties, and as long as they keep it down, as long as they keep it all inside, as long as they're not too obvious about it, and then they go out, they put their hijab back on and go back out, then they're good. So
Yeah, I remember. Matter of fact, when you started talking about that, as soon as you mentioned Iran, I started remembering the party stories from back in the day, and like you're talking like massive wild orgy parties and stuff like that. And as long as you are modest when you went out on the street, that's all they cared about. But yeah, we've heard this for many years. Hey, as long as we don't see you drinking the alcohol, then you won't get in trouble for it. So that encourages like these double lives, and this is why you have all these dawa guys who get caught in all these scandals behind the scenes. Keep in mind that can happen to any group. You can always have some sort of scandal. It's just like standard in Islam that everyone's doing messed up stuff behind the scenes because of this. And a related issue, Robert, is when you have this, as you're pointing out, where the only reason not to do something is because you're going to be punished for it. And you have these guys who are raised in a culture where you don't do this, this, and that. Why? Because if you're caught, you'll be severely punished. And they don't develop any concept of doing the right thing for the right reason or not doing something because it's just wrong. It's always the only reason not to do something is because I'll get punished. And then we take millions of these same people and we import them to Western nations where we make it clear, oh, we're not gonna punish you for what you do because you're a poor immigrant. You don't know any better. And then what happens?
Then
you
you
see
have
it over and over again. They have no
massive
self-control.
rise in crime and rape and everything else. Yep, it's once again the West is suffering from not bothering to understand what they're dealing with, the belief system of the people who they're bringing in. And there's so many different contexts in which this is true. Anyway, it's just incredible, the willful ignorance. Speaking of willful ignorance, I got another one. This is actually, I believe, a friend of yours. I don't know him myself, and I'm trying to find his name. Anthony Rogers. He's a guy you know, right? And so...
darn right.
Let me get the picture here. He was recently in North Carolina. You probably know all about this. And was debating...
Oh, yeah, I was there.
Oh, well, there you go. So why don't you tell us what happened?
Actually, they're on opposite sides of the stage, so I think this is something different.
Okay. Well, this was... Let me get it here. North Carolina State University. And that is the Islamic scholar Abdullah Qadra. And he did a debate with Rogers. And in the Q&A after the debate, he is asked, he actually starts talking about Lady Aisha, the mother of the believers. And Anthony Rogers says, Child Aisha. And Qadra says, no, Lady Aisha. God be pleased with her. Yes, she was young. Now, what is...
Wabbit season. Duck season, wabbit season, duck season.
Now, what is the age of marriage in the U.S.? And he goes on about how some states have young ages for marriage, legal marriage. And he goes on to say, Prophet Muhammad in his own time did not object and did not say, oh, look, he's marrying a young lady. Well, of course, the problem is not what was acceptable in his time. This is a big dodge that Islamic apologists make. The problem with the child marriage of Muhammad is not that it was considered to be wrong in his time. It was taken for granted in many areas. But the problem is because he's the excellent example, a lot of Muslims think there's nothing wrong with this now when we know very, very well how harmful this is to young girls. But he says it doesn't matter. If in that community it is okay, there's no physical harm, no psychological harm. Those are both highly questionable. And there's no problem. Mm-hmm. It's by the consent of all parties. What is the issue with that? That's what this guy in North Carolina said.
Well, I think, yeah, they must have done multiple events because I saw them debate, but it was Trinity versus Tawhid debate. So they must have done a follow up event. But yeah, so a couple issues. One, if he doesn't harm her physically, Andrew Wilson is a debater, and he actually did the math on this. He actually did the math, and he was talking to a Muslim who was arguing along those lines. Well, yes, Muhammad did have sex with Aisha when she was 9, but he didn't harm her. And so Andrew did the math and found out, did the research and found out that the length of the vaginal canal of a 9-year-old girl is about 2 inches. About 2 inches. So about like that, Robert. About like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went on to argue that if Muhammad didn't damage her, then he must have been smaller than 2 inches. And so he would estimate that Muhammad must have had a 1.8 inch or smaller member.
My goodness.
And so that's one issue. That's one issue. So that needs to be brought up whenever someone says, "Oh, but didn't harm her," and so on. But apart from that, yeah, the real issue is what you're pointing out. If a culture in the past did something and they didn't know any better, they didn't know how that something is harmful or something like that, you can kind of cut them slack. If it's someone who gets God's stamp of approval on everything he does for all future generations, and it's something that is harmful and something that we find out is harmful, you can look at this has come up in various debates and so on, but you get all sorts of medical problems. You get all sorts of problems for the mother and for the baby if she gets pregnant, the younger the girl is. So these things you have all of these health problems that arise, fistulas and so on, that are all like really high the younger you are. And then they sort of minimize in the 18 to 20 year range. And so that's the idea behind, hey, wait until someone is fully grown before having sex with her because it leads to all these problems. And so anyway, they just, nope, Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, so that settles it. And that's the problem. You have these, Daniel Hakikachu and all these guys. No, Muhammad did it, so obviously it's fine. And they don't care about the studies. And so what they're basically saying is, we don't care how many girls are harmed or die, or we don't care as long as we're following Muhammad. And
Yep.
That's a problem.
That is a big problem. And it's a problem in so many different ways. Here's another guy who was following Muhammad. You have seen this guy before. There he is. That is Hadi Matar. And Hadi Matar is the man who stabbed Salman Rushdie back in 2022. And he has just now been sentenced. Just this past week, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Now, 25 years in prison for attempted murder is pretty lenient, but that is actually the maximum sentence in wherever the area of New York where he was tried. But he's also facing terrorism charges that he has yet to be tried for that could get him life in prison. And that's probably not a bad idea because he's 27 years old. If he has a 25-year sentence, he'll probably be out in 12 or 15, and he'll be in his early 40s.
Significantly more radical.
Indeed. And so how was he following Muhammad?
Well, Muhammad ordered his followers to kill critics. There were times when he was just, okay, leave those people alone, but it was it was when it was convenient for him. Later on, when he got to power and so on, then it was, hey, he kept a list of people that he wanted dead. And he's like, I don't care where you find these guys, you got to, these people have to die. And he gave his followers a list of people. And several of the people on that list were just people who'd made fun of him at some point. They made fun of him. And so you get to the 20th and 21st century, and someone like Salman Rushdie, who touches some nerves with his book on about the satanic verses, bringing that painful memory back to the ummah. And someone like that's got to die, especially when you get the thumbs up from your mullahs.
David, interesting thing Hadi Matar said when he was sentenced. He said, Salman Rushdie wants to disrespect other people. He wants to be a bully. He wants to bully other people. I don't agree with that. Now, remember, this is the guy this is the guy who stabbed Rushdie and almost killed him. But how is
this guy's not doing what I want, so I'm going to stab the crap out of him, make him do what I say, because I can't stand bullies.
He's saying that he's the victim, that Salman Rushdie was bullying him. And that actually makes sense if you think about the idea of Islamic blasphemy. And so many Muslim countries actually have a law against hurting the religious sentiments of Muslims. That they call it, it's blasphemy laws, it's Sharia, but they claim that he's hurting feelings, whoever the blasphemer is, and thus has to be stopped because of that. And so it's like you hurt Muhammad, you're hurting Muslims. And I find that fascinating, really, that somehow they take it personally if you say something critical of Muhammad, and he can play the victim. And of course, we always see jihadis playing the victim.
Yeah, and that's my real issue is the hypocrisy. If you were consistent and you were like, we're the nicest people in the world, we would never say one word that offends anyone ever. So please don't offend us. We just don't believe it's ever right to offend other people. That would be one thing. And I'd be like, oh, that's a nice group that doesn't ever want to hurt anyone's feelings. So why are you going to hurt their feelings and so on? That's just not this group. It's the Jews this and the Christians this, and you're evil and you're wicked and you have to be wiped out and we can't be friends with you because you're evil and you will be humiliated. We're going to subjugate you. We're going to kill you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And oh, by the way, don't ever say anything negative about our prophet because it'll hurt our feelings. Like, wait, what? What'd you just say? Anyway.
You'll be bullying him.
Yeah.
All right. Story out of the UK. Always a rich vein. We have a dog rescue center owner, Oavid Rahman. And he took in animals from owners who could no longer keep them with the promise of giving them new homes for a fee. But what do you know, David? 37 dogs found dead on the premises that he had told the dog owners if they turned them over to him, he would find them a nice new home. And instead, he seems to have killed 37 dogs. Now, why are we talking about that on a jihad show?
Well, as we've already pointed out, Muhammad ordered his followers to kill dogs. So at first it was all dogs. And it's just amazing, the story. He's supposed to have a meeting with the angel Gabriel. And then the angel, let's be honest, Dihya al-Kalbi, let's just be honest here. So Muhammad's supposed to have a meeting with his little boyfriend, little boy toy, Dihya al-Kalbi. But I'll just tell the story according to them. So Muhammad's supposed to have a meeting with the angel Gabriel. And Gabriel doesn't show up. And Muhammad's all sad because his boyfriend didn't come over. The angel Gabriel didn't come over. And he tries to figure out why, and then he finds out it's because there was a puppy that had snuck into the house and was hiding in the house, and that's why. The angel Gabriel doesn't like dogs. Now, why is that interesting? Because you have all these passages where Dihya al-Kalbi is over Muhammad's house, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's the angel Gabriel with me behind the curtain over there."
But his name is al-Kalbi.
That's what I mean. Isn't that weird? It's like they're messing with him, like the guy was scared of dogs and stuff, and they name him the dog. Anyway, it's something weird going on there. There's too much of a coincidence going on. So, anyway, Muhammad's all upset because the angel Gabriel, aka Dihya al-Kalbi, didn't show up for the little rendezvous. And so it's because of this dog. So Muhammad orders his followers to kill all dogs. So at first the command goes out, kill all dogs. And it says they were even finding the dogs of the Bedouin people of the desert and killing them and so on. Later on, as is so frequently the case, when his followers start complaining about stuff, he goes ahead and modifies things. But they started complaining. We've got dogs that we use for hunting, and they help us hunt. He's like, okay, you can have a hunting dog and so on. Think you could have like a hunting dog and a shepherd dog, but again, you don't keep dogs for pets.
No pets.
What are you supposed to do? Yeah, what are you supposed to do with dogs for pets? Those still have to die. Those still have to die, and any dog that's black still has to die. In other words, if you read all Muhammad's commands on this, that's what you'd get. And so these people are bringing in these dogs. These aren't hunting dogs. These aren't shepherd dogs. These are dogs that people had as pets, and then you move into a different apartment, and you're not allowed to have a dog there or something like that. So, okay, well, this guy will find a nice home for my dog. Yes, in hell. I told you I would find you. Anyway, that's this guy thinks he's finding the dogs their awesome home in hell.
That's it. All right. We got several of the standard issue jihad stories out of Europe these days, David. So I guess we should hit some of them. We've got in Bielefeld, Germany, or however that is said, people are outside the cutie bar. The cutie. I can just hear them. It's, we will go to the cutie. The cutie bar, there it is, in Bielefeld, Germany. And everybody's having a good time. But shortly after 4 a.m., a Syrian migrant comes along and starts stabbing people at random with a sword cane. And he stabs 5 people outside this bar, this Syrian. So that is a story that we have seen so many times. It's really kind of a daily story out of Europe these days. And it's what is the rationale? What's the idea behind stabbing people at random?
Well, that's you're spreading terror. You're terrorizing them. You have ongoing commands to terrorize people and discombobulate them and so on and weaken them. And it is fascinating, the level of stupidity. You have an entire ideology which breaks everything down into the House of Islam and the House of War. Okay, what does it mean to be in the House of War? It means they're at war with you. Like they're at war with the UK. They're at war with Germany. They're at war with France. Until you are fully under Sharia, you are the House of War. They're at war with you. And so, again, you have peaceful Muslims, as we pointed out in the past. You've got peaceful Muslims who just go to the West because they want, more opportunities or something like that than they had back home, or want a job or something like that. But you have the true believers in Islam who believe, hey, okay, I'm here in Afghanistan or Pakistan, let's say, and over there is the House of War, people that need to be subjugated. And these Western nations say, hey, let's invite in as many of these guys as possible. As many of these guys who believe they're at war with us as possible. And it's just insane that no matter how many times people are warned, they still, no, that can't be the case. What do you mean that's not the case? These guys will tell you. These guys will tell you after they go on their killing sprees or stabbing sprees and so on.
Yep.
Wild stuff.
So we had another one in France, and this was just today. The story broke that 3 youths attacked another youth with an axe. And originally, that's how it was reported. Then, after a while, the story was developing. It was revealed that the victim was Turkish. He actually turned out to be Kurdish, but the initial report said Turkish. So the story went out, 3 youths attack a Turkish youth. And there were several stories. Yeah, exactly. There were several stories in the press, the French press, that said that they were worried about riots because this Turkish youth had been attacked by 3 youths. But as the story continued to go on, then it comes out the victim is a Kurd. The 3 who attacked him are Turks. And where did they strike him with the axe? Where do you think they struck him with the axe, David?
I'll go with neck for 200.
You win the 200. You win the grand prize today because, of course, that is exactly where they struck him. And so it does seem clear that we have, once again, a case of people who are following the Quran, which says when you meet the unbelievers, strike the necks. But you would never get the idea of that from the initial reports.
Yeah, and it's that's the other thing. So one, Western nations are bringing in tons of people who believe they're at war with the West. The West is the house of war. They're here to subjugate us. So you have that, but also you have Western nations bringing, basically importing people's ongoing conflicts. So you got problems between Pakistan and India in London, right? In London. And in tons of cities in the UK, you have problems between Pakistanis and Indians. Why? Because you brought in a bunch of people from India who are really ticked off at Pakistan. You bring in a bunch of people from Pakistan who are really ticked off at India, and then something happens, and then they're ready to fight in the streets of Western nations. Same with a lot of these other places, Turks and Kurds and so on. And then they're like, hey, let's basically import all of the conflicts of the world and have them on the streets of Western nations, Germany, France, the UK. That's definitely what we need.
That's what they're doing. So we have the Turks attacking a Kurd in France. We have the Syrian running amok in Germany. And of course, there is more. Let's see here. Let's go to Staten Island. And right there in Staten Island in New York City, we have the reappearance of a guy I remember from the very early days of Jihad Watch back in the early 2000s. That is Tariq Mahana, who is a convicted terrorist who was convicted in 2011 after years of deliberations, because I remember him from way back. But anyway, conspiring to kill Americans and sentenced to 17 years in federal prison because he was going to go jihad in the United States. But he served his time, he got out, and now he is teaching Quran to children at a mosque in Staten Island.
But that's not all he's doing to children.
What could possibly go wrong, though? I mean, this guy, there's no indication whatsoever that he doesn't hold to the same view of Islam that he held to when he was plotting terrorism and ended up in prison.
Yeah, because what would show him otherwise? What would show him, what are you going to learn in prison where it's just you and the Quran and the Hadith and so on, and you and a bunch of your Muslim buddies? What is going to convince you, you know what, jihad is just wrong. This stuff is just wrong. Sharia, you're trying to impose Sharia, that's just wrong. Where are they going to get this idea? No, it's never going to happen. Yep. You're coming out of prison ideologically worse, but more careful. You learn what the authorities are. There's a problem with prison. It's like you go in there, if a person doesn't actually change, all the person has done is learn how to not get caught better, right? Oh, this is what got me caught last time. Let me make sure I don't do that in the future. And so, yeah, someone like this, keep in mind, it's always possible that he had some random change of heart that we don't know about. But yeah, chances are this guy is more radical than ever, and that he's just more careful about not letting the government know what he's doing. And what does the Muslim Ummah say? Hey, let this guy, convicted terrorist, teach the children.
Notice also the one finger salute. Now, of course, Muslims make that and insist that it's just Tawheed. All they're doing is affirming Islamic monotheism, but it is something that became very closely associated with ISIS. All the ISIS guys were doing that incessantly, and so it's not really all that innocuous. Now, speaking of former terrorists and ex-cons, let's go to Randall Ismail Royer. Do you know this guy, David? Randall Royer.
No.
He is another jihadi from way back. And
I was thinking he seems like a dork, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Back in the 90s, he converted to Islam. He went to Bosnia to wage jihad there. Went to a jihad training camp, fought with the jihadis. In 2004, he was sentenced for his part in what was called the Virginia Jihad Network. And they were training to wage jihad. I don't know if he was planning to wage jihad in the United States or go overseas, but he did try to enter a jihad training camp run by Lashkar-e-Taiba, the jihad group. He pled guilty to lesser charges. He got 20 years in prison. He served 13. He got out a few years ago, and he contacted me, actually. And he emailed me for quite a while. We had a long exchange, and he was insisting that he had changed, that he had reformed, that he had a different view of Islam, and he very, very much wanted to get together and talk and meet in Washington.
In fact, Robert, that's good. Meet in Washington. I'll come to your house. What's your address again?
Yeah, well, I still was kind of suspicious, and I thought, I don't know, he's telling me he's changed, but I don't have any indication of that. Oh, meanwhile, also, it's worth noting, I'm just remembering this, that on Twitter, before it was X, at that time, he was talking about that he had been talking to me and saying all the usual things that you would expect. He's a vicious Islamophobe and all that. And then meanwhile, in our chats, he was saying, I understand, that you're a reasonable man and I'm a reasonable man and we can have a discussion. And so I thought, this guy's not honest because he's being two-faced and that doesn't make me have any interest in meeting him. So we never did meet. But now he has been named to President Trump's Commission on Religious Liberty. He's part of the Advisory Board of Lay Leaders. Now, the thing is that Randall Royer still considers himself to be a Muslim, and he claims that he has rejected the terrorism that got him 13 years in prison. What is one reason why that is worth doubting, just on the face of it?
Well, you're allowed to deceive people. Muhammad said war is deceit. And so this is this ongoing problem. You have Muslims who aren't trying to hurt anyone. And you do occasionally have someone who wants to kill people and then changes his mind. But how do you know? Because the one who's actually changed his mind is going to tell you, I changed my mind. I believe that Islam is peace now, something like that. But the person who hasn't changed and is just more deceptive is going to tell you the exact same thing. So how can you tell the difference? How can you tell the difference? Unless you hook the person up to a good lie detector, how do you know the person is genuine in what he's saying when he's going to, either way, he's going to tell you the exact same thing. No matter what he believes, he's going to tell you the exact same thing. And so you just don't know. And so it would seem obvious to us if you just don't know. If it's basically, I wouldn't even call it a coin flip, because I would say it's much more likely that he's faking. Mm-hmm. I would say it's significantly more likely that he's faking. But even if you thought there was a 10% chance that the guy's faking, why would you want him to have a post like this? It's crazy.
Yes. There's another thing too. When I hear a Muslim say, I used to be a jihadi, which he obviously used to be, he's convicted. And now I realize that the true message of the Quran is peace. Well, I know what the Quran says. And I know that the true message of the Quran is not peace. And so I think, okay, so you're telling me you're an idiot, in other words, or you're a liar. And it's much more likely that you're a liar, since lying is something that is actually sanctioned in the religion. And anybody who reads the Quran and studies it, as any serious Muslim is going to do, is going to know that it does not really teach peace.
Yeah, you have Quran verses like... let me put it this way. To read the Quran and conclude that you're not supposed to wage jihad or something like that, you have to be inserting your own ideas into that text because it's very clear, and you have to be very selective in your reading. In other words, hey, the Quran says if anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind. That only works with someone who hasn't read it. There's no compulsion in religion, and that's the real rule of us. Okay, that only works with someone who hasn't read it. It works for Westerners who are completely ignorant, who are being duped into thinking that Islam is actually peaceful and tolerant. If you actually read the Quran, where are you getting the idea that it's peaceful or that you're not supposed to subjugate people from the Quran when you're actually reading this stuff seriously?
Precisely.
And so with someone like this, I don't know. It just seems obvious that you should be asking some questions. There should definitely be a sit down with some knowledgeable people. Oh, okay, so you somehow discovered in prison how Islam is peaceful. Awesome. Explain that for us. We'd like to hear this. And you show us where you're getting this from. And if you can't, we don't think you got it either.
There you go. And so really, I don't know what's going on. You know, I find it astonishing, David, that this Commission on Religious Liberty has this guy and Hamza Yusuf. And where are you on it? Where is anybody who's a critic of Islam or an opponent of jihad violence? Nobody. And of course, it's very clear the administration's not going to touch such people any more than any early administration would. So why a convicted jihadi? It's astonishing. I don't know what's going on. All right. Meanwhile, one thing that might be going on is the all-pervasive influence of the Hamas-linked Council on American-Islamic Relations. And they also had another notch in their belt this week because Salman Rushdie, whose attempted murderer was just sentenced, he was supposed to give the commencement speech at Claremont McKenna College. And where is Claremont McKenna College? I don't know where that is. But anyway, somebody will tell us. It's not in the story here, and I didn't look it up. But anyway, there was a big outcry of Muslim students and the Council on American-Islamic Relations saying that it was disrespectful to have Rushdie give the commencement address. And finally, he pulled out. He said he wasn't going to do it. So, why would it be disrespectful to have a victim of a jihad attack give the commencement address?
It is funny. You can write one fantasy book, which is what it was. You can write one weird fantasy book about 1 million years ago, and they'll just put you on a list, and they don't forget. And it's just amazing to me because a lot of these guys would love some Muslim preacher who believes in slaughtering unbelievers and stuff like that in the name of Allah. They would love to have him as a speaker and so on. Yeah. So it's just this. I mean, think the man is a famous author. He's one of the most famous people of the past several decades because of various things that happened. And you brought up the satanic verses decades ago. That's it. You're done.
Yep. He's the fatwa's still in place. He said a few years ago, I don't know if it's still true, but it was just a few years ago, Rushdie said that the fatwa was issued on February 14th, 1989. And it is every year, he said, he gets a Valentine from the Islamic Republic. They notify him that it is still in effect. And they still want him dead, and they'll still give a reward to the killer. So, anyway. That's the Council on American-Islamic Relations this week. Oh, hey, David, this is a great story out of Canada.
Hang on 1 second. I just want to say, Rushdie's, he's pretty old. He was severely injured in that attack and so on. Wouldn't it be nice to see the Iranian regime go away before he does?
Could happen.
Just have to say. Yeah.
It's widely hated by the Iranian people.
Hey, you Iranians. I'm not talking to the leaders. Leaders are scum. I'm talking to the people who don't like the leaders. Get it done. Get it done.
The people who
make it happen. Let let Uncle Sam get some joy in his later years.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the people, those of you who go inside in the Islamic Republic and take off the hijab and have a glass of wine and relax, play some music, those are the people we are addressing here. Okay, great story out of Canada. This is Hussam Taha Ali As-Sawai. All right? And he glorified jihad terrorism, he praised Hamas, he threatened mass violence, and he coordinated with jihadis, and he was living freely in Canada and about to become a Canadian citizen. And his social media was full of calls to jihad, and he was trying to leave Canada. He actually is an immigrant from Yemen, but he was trying to leave Canada to join a jihad terror group in the Middle East. And he has been released on bail, David. And the condition of his bail is that he has to live under house arrest. But he does not have to live under house arrest at his house. He's going to live at a mosque in Toronto. That's going to fix everything, am I right? He's going to learn the true, peaceful Islam and renounce his jihadi ways. It's a great idea. Yeah, really, all the jihadis should be housed at mosques, shouldn't they?
Yeah, he's gonna read. If anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind, and definitely not to read the next. He's definitely not going to read the next verse.
Nobody ever does.
Yeah, but it's the same situation where everyone is shocked that there's a terrorist attack during Ramadan. They're like, "What? How can this happen during a holy month?" They have a non-Islamic idea of a holy month. But it's the same here too. You got this guy, and he's definitely got some issues, but he just needs to be around more Islam. He needs to be around Islam 24/7 in a mosque because that will make him more peaceful.
Exactly. Yeah, and what could possibly go wrong? Because we know, of course, that Islam is totally peaceful, and that those who commit jihad terrorism are twisting and hijacking the true peaceful Islam. Well, all right, let's see. There's plenty more stupid infidels, as always. Oh, here's some. This was in lovely Providence, Rhode Island. I don't know if you can see that, but they lowered the American flag and raised the Palestinian flag at the Providence City Hall in Rhode Island. And in conjunction with that, I thought that it was worth mentioning that the Germans, our friends the Germans, who always make wise political decisions, are planning to bring in large numbers of Palestinians from Gaza and settling them in Germany. Nothing could go wrong from that. Right?
Have you seen this? Have you seen the wall between Gaza and Egypt, Robert? Have you seen that wall?
Yes.
That is a wall between Gaza and the Muslim world. The Muslim world said, we want the biggest, baddest, most intimidating wall on the planet to keep these guys on the other side of that thing. That's how they're viewed by their fellow Muslims. We are not safe. You are not safe around these guys. And anyway, Germans are like, yeah, we will bring them here.
Yes, what could go wrong? And, also Kuwait expelled, what was it, like 30,000, 300? I think it was actually 300,000, if I recall correctly, Palestinians in the 90s. I knew a guy a few years back. He was a Palestinian who had born and grown up in Kuwait, but then they were all expelled in the mid-90s. And there was a reason for that. It wasn't just that the Kuwaitis were being mean, but there's so much jihadi sentiment among the Palestinians that they essentially end up making life miserable for those around them wherever they go.
Mm-hmm. And think about how messed up this is. So you've got people in Gaza, And you have Hamas, you've got those guys, and they go on killing sprees, and they believe in torturing, raping, kidnapping, and murdering as many Jews as possible. And the only thing that stops them is, defense measures and lots of people with guns to stop them. But it's not just the jihadis who believe these things, because we see when they bring even a body, start parading a body through the streets, you see endless people cheering and cheering and cheering and beating the body and so on. Those peaceful, innocent civilians who really, really hate Jews so much that they celebrate the death of Jews and they love it and they believe in all that, and those are the people that Germany wants to bring in to be
Yep.
in a place where they can have open access to Jews just by going to the local synagogue.
There you go. What could possibly go wrong?
No idea.
It's going to be a multicultural paradise. Speaking of multicultural paradises, also over in Canada, we have a demonstration in Vancouver, way out west, where a mob of pro-Palestinian demonstrators started to chant, "Death to Canada, death to the United States, death to Israel." Now, of course, they were standing in Canada as they did this. Now, how long can a nation endure a population of people who want to destroy that nation? How long can a nation stand to have a group of people within it who hate it and want to see it gone?
For a while, if it's strong enough, but it's a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time. It's going to happen. Meanwhile, in Sydney, Australia, let's see, we had, yes, at the University of Sydney, there was a pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian demonstration. A guy stood up and started to denounce Hamas as a terrorist group. And you can see that the whole crowd got up and turned their backs because they were so enraged that this guy was criticizing Hamas at the University of Sydney in Australia. Once again, what could possibly go wrong with a group like that in Australia? Meanwhile, in France, yes.
Just have to say, Robert, it's almost like people can be riled up into defending anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a group that, in its founding charter, acknowledges they want death for everybody. It's in, I think it's Article 7. That's where you have them quoting Muhammad, that the end will not come until Muslims fight the Jews, and the Jews are hiding behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees are saying, "Ya Muslim, there is a Jew behind me, come kill him." And so they're going to carry this out. They're going to exterminate all Jews. So they want death for their enemies. But the very next article is their motto, and it's death for the sake of Allah is their loftiest goal for themselves. Just think about this. They want their enemies dead. They want themselves dead. Just dead for different reasons. But they want everyone dead. Okay, that's like the definition of a death cult. And you've got all these people in the West, and you just tell them, "Hey, you're a good person, and you're a wonderful person if you go around just celebrating and defending and promoting this death cult and trying to silence anyone who isn't for this death cult." And okay, well, that makes us good, yay! Bunch of idiots, man.
Yep. And speaking of more idiots of the same kind, Rasmus Paludan, who is the I believe he's Danish, isn't he? He is the, Danish-Swedish. And he has been known for burning the Quran. And a lot of people object to the burning of books, of course, because it was associated with the National Socialists. And we certainly understand that. But what's the late Salwan Momika and Rasmus Paludan, who is still with us, were trying to do is call attention to the violence and hatred that's in the Quran itself. And in any case, he has now been banned from entering Italy and Switzerland. And so I think it's interesting that you have these people openly supporting Hamas and openly justifying jihad violence, and they're let in to the US, to Canada, to Australia, to all over Europe with no problem at all. But a critic of Islam, banned from Italy. Of course, many others have been banned from Britain. And it's all about protecting Islam from criticism. Is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, hey, here's a good one. Speaking of people who are let in and people who are let out. Okay, I'm just going to read this. This is out of the Daily Mail a few days ago. An Iranian criminal was allowed to stay in the UK after an immigration judge said that he wouldn't be able to form a relationship with his 3-year-old child or cut his son's hair if he were deported. The Iranian, who absconded from immigration control for over a decade and whose asylum case in the UK has gone on for more than 20 years, argued that he had to stay in Britain because he was very involved in raising his child and would regularly cut his hair. And so it was ruled that he could stay in Britain because he wouldn't be able to give his son haircuts if he's deported.
You heard it here, folks. If you're in a place illegally and you're in all kinds of trouble and they're looking for you and they're going to deport you and stuff, just start cutting some kids' hair and they'll let you slide in the UK.
The mind reels. I'm speechless.
Robert!
I don't know. Yes.
Robert, you're just going to let that kid's hair grow forever and he's like tripping over his own hair and stuff because there's no one there to cut his hair? Come on, Robert.
Yeah, you do have a point there.
It's the greater good. The greater good.
We don't want the kid to look like some
poor
hippie.
Kid. Yeah, he's going to look like some long-haired hippie freak. Going to be smoking the reefer and peace signs and stuff. Come on.
Yeah, it's bad. All right, we got Peter Tatchell. Peter Tatchell is a veteran leftist activist in the UK. He's a gay rights activist, and he is a very vociferous critic of Israel. And so he's essentially a standard issue leftist. But he recently was criticizing Hamas because Hamas killed the people who were protesting against Hamas in Gaza. And Peter Tatchell thought that was terrible. And so he turned from his gay rights activism and his anti-Israel activism and actually protested against Hamas. And now he has been charged with Islamophobia and actually arrested for Islamophobia in the UK. For criticizing Hamas, David.
Can't say we didn't warn them, Robert.
Yep, this is true. Let me see. I didn't have this picture, but let's see if I can get it.
We told them exactly what would happen. What did they do? Called us racist, Islamophobic, hate-mongering bigots and banned you.
There you go. Yeah, there's Peter Tatchell, and you see he's got a picture. He's got a sign he's carrying, and it says "Stop Israel Genocide." So he's in favor of Hamas in general. He's in favor of the jihad against Israel. He's repeating the Hamas propaganda about Israel committing genocide. But then he says, "Stop Hamas executions." And Odai Arubai is actually one of the guys who was leading the protests against Hamas, and he was killed by Hamas. So Peter Tatchell's got this sign, Odai Arubai, age 22, executed by Hamas, R.I.P., and he was arrested for Islamophobia as a result.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a made guy. This guy's a standard, a pillar of the leftist establishment in Britain. Gay rights activist, far left, hates Israel, card-carrying leftist establishment figure. And he's still arrested for Islamophobia for criticizing not Islam even, not Muhammad. He didn't talk about Aisha. He didn't talk about jihad. He criticized Hamas.
Good luck, UK.
Yeah, they're cooked. They're done.
Stick a fork in them.
Yep. We have here, let me get this guy's name, this guy's picture. Because, let's see, he's actually violating Sharia. You'll see as soon as I find his picture. There he is. He's got the big mustache and no beard.
Whoa, that's the opposite of what you're supposed to have, dude.
That's right. Muhammad says that the Jews and the Christians grow their mustaches long and trim their beards. So you must not be like them. You have to grow your beards long and trim your mustache. So
And this guy's like, but my favorite wrestler is the Iron Sheik.
So that guy is Nadim Mohammed Begum, and he lives in Britain. And he was accused of murdering his daughter-in-law 6 months ago. And it looks like it was an honor killing, but the senior Crown prosecutor, Katie Marsden, said, it is difficult to understand what drove Begum to take his daughter-in-law's life in such a brutal way. We may never fully understand the circumstances which led to her tragic death. But actually, the stories at the time say that Begum disagreed with the victim, Mashal Ilyas, over her role in the household and the expectation that she was supposed to cook and clean. And so he killed her. So actually, it's not at all hard to understand the motive, because that seems to be fairly typical honor killing, where you have somebody who's considered to be too Western and not following Islamic mores, and they get killed for it. Have we not seen many stories of that kind, sir?
Yeah, it's just as we've pointed out many times before, it's very easy to justify. You can have killings of these type as a cultural thing, but just very easy to defend in Islam. Muhammad said, if anyone leaves his Islamic religion, kill him. So there's a death penalty for apostasy. You've got Muhammad and Sunnah ibn Majah saying, carry out Allah's penalties even against your own family members. And you've got this idea in passages like Surah 4, verse 65, that if you're not just mindlessly obeying everything Allah and Muhammad say, then you're not a real Muslim. And so anyone who's violating Islam's teachings or showing, hey, I don't really care about them, or I don't believe I have to follow them or something like that, you're actually in the apostate category. According to Surah 4, verse 65, Muhammad says, kill apostates. Muhammad also said, carry out the penalties against your own family members. And so not difficult to say, hey, so-and-so's not doing what she's supposed to, or he's supposed to, or this or that, and therefore just gonna take him out.
Mm-hmm. Similar story out of Pakistan. A young couple attempting to marry without the consent of the woman's family was attacked in an apparent honor-related case in Thahri Mohabbat, Dadu district. Sapna Janri and Mashuk Solangi were en route to court to solemnize their marriage when unidentified assailants opened fire on them. And Khalid Solangi, who appears to be a relative of the groom, who was accompanying the couple, was killed on the spot, while Mashuk sustained injuries. Sapna Janri was killed in the attack. So this is the kind of thing that happens. They didn't get the consent of the woman's family. Looks like the woman's family then carried out the honor killing as a result in order to cleanse the honor that the woman had sullied.
Strange way to cleanse honor.
Yeah, but unfortunately it's all too common, justified in the Quran in chapter 18, the weirdest and most interesting chapter of the Quran. And in it there is a very strange story in which Moses is accompanying this unnamed figure who's called Khidr in Islamic tradition, or Green. And he is, the Sufis think of him as this great mystical figure and have all these stories about him. But in any case, in the Quran, in chapter 18, he's taken Moses around and he does all these weird things. And he warns Moses not to ask him about them, or he will not allow him to follow him around. But Moses can't resist. And he keeps asking questions, and so finally the guy says, "Okay, I'm done with you, but I will answer your questions." And one of the things was that he just killed this boy gratuitously, and so he explains to Moses that he killed him because he was not righteous, and he wanted his parents were righteous, so he wanted to give his parents the relief from their unrighteous son and let them have another child who would be righteous. And so this is the basis for the idea that you can just off a child who is not a doctrinaire Muslim, not following Islam properly, cleanse the honor of your family, have a new child who will do it right. All right, we have reached an hour, so let's do some super chats here. Thank you all for the super chats. I still kind of find this amazing that they're letting me do it, but they haven't stopped me yet. So we'll see when they get around to that. Seal of the Prophet says, Houthis just put us all in shelters, just in time for this week in Jihad. Okay, I don't know what that's all about, but if you're watching from Yemen, then that's great. Is that? Do you know what that's
that
about?
should. No, I'm guessing there's some attack right now going on, but I like that idea of. Hey, we're stuck in a shelter right now because the alarms are going off and they're bombing something. Let's all learn about jihad or something like that. That's actually a good idea.
Good idea.
That's a good idea. In fact, things should be dialed up where anytime there's some sort of rocket attack or something like that, people are going to go down into the shelters where they will be taught the truth about Islam and Muhammad and all these horrifying stories in the Muslim sources.
I know that you and I
come out more knowledgeable every time.
You and I both, we would gladly volunteer should the Israeli government or any government that is attacked by jihadis wish to institute such an educational program. We will be glad to coordinate it. I'm speaking for you, but I'm confident that you would join me in this initiative.
We'll put together the entire shelter curriculum. We'll put it together.
Yep. Okay, Bo Rudder says, if Raymond Ibrahim can post videos, why can't Robert? Well, what makes you think I can do everything Raymond can do? But you're right. I actually have been thinking that maybe I should do some videos. This is something I often think, and then I don't know what to make the videos about. So if you have any ideas, if there are videos you would like to see from me, please do contact me at my Patreon page or at director@jihadwatch.org and let me know, because really this is one of the things I write all the time. I'm kind of a writer guy and I've written some books, but videos I find puzzling, and I'm doing this one. David said this would be a good idea and I appreciate it, and we do it, but I don't have any other ideas. So if you do, give me a shout.
The best approach, given what you do, Robert, is probably to respond to things very quickly, because you have open access to all the latest information, and whatever you see, some video clip of some sheikh or something like that talking about something, or something's going on, just make a video, play a little clip of what happened, of what he said, and then your reaction to it, because these are the situations where there are tons of people creating content now. So the YouTube is filled with content. And so a person's going, they're looking for something. Guess what? There are already 10,000 videos on that subject. So how do you compete with that sort of thing? But every time there's something new, there's some new story or breaking news or something like that. It's like when a new product comes out, when a new iPhone comes out, then it changes from, oh, there's tons of videos on this topic already, to, oh, here's something new. And so there's high demand but low supply. And the other situation where you have that is where you got new stories coming out or new information or something like that. Then all of a sudden there can be high demand but low supply of videos. And so if you're jumping on them, then those usually do well.
Well, one thing that has always kept me back from that is that I never mastered the technology of getting a video clip and putting it in my own video. I know this is like basic stuff, and there probably is not very difficult, but I've tried it and failed, and so I know I'll look into this. There must be a way to do it. Anyway,
you just you get a video downloader, Robert. You get a video downloader.
That part I can do. That part I know.
So you know how to download a video?
Yes.
Okay, so it's very easy. You just sit in front of your camera with your microphone there. and you record your response. Now, there are programs where you can actually interact, and you got it right there, and you can be pausing and stuff like that. You don't need to do anything that fancy. You just watch the clip for yourself, maybe even chop it up. Just whatever download,
That's
whatever
what
you
I don't know how
download.
to do.
Yeah, whatever you download, stick it into iMovie, chop it up into segments, whatever segments you want to respond to. Get rid of the rest, and then record your response and splice that where it goes. I might just have to come to you one day and just sit down and make a couple that way.
David, you know, you're always welcome here. And I got to tell you, I have tried this iMovie business and to cut a piece out of a bigger video. And for some reason, I have never been able to do it. You know, it just gets all messed up. And anyway,
I have to say, Robert,
I'm an old man now.
I sit there and I think, what could possibly be easier than chopping up a video in iMovie, because it's the easiest program in the world. With that said, I do understand you, because I tried to learn like TikTok and stuff like that, and I couldn't do it. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I watched like 10 or 12 tutorials on how to make TikTok videos. I'm like, I don't get this. I still don't get it. But I knew then. I told one of my friends who does TikTok, I was like, look, you have to just sit down beside me, and we make a video, and then I'm going to forget all that. So we have to do it again and again until we've made like 10 or 20 videos. Then all of a sudden I'll get it.
Well, come on up. We'll make some videos, and we'll take you to dinner, and you can show me how to do this.
We'll make it work.
All right. So we have David Sumner, filmmaker, and he says, I'm reading the critical Quran. Thank you for that. And wow, it literally tells Muslims, actually any Quran will, but I appreciate that you're reading the critical Quran, literally tells Muslims to migrate to other places just to spread Islam, answering the question of why they come to the West if they love Sharia so much. Yes, this is one of the things that's in the footnotes of the critical Quran. I tried to make it so that it would be something you could use, a resource that would explain the behavior of jihadis and in many ways Muslims in general. Nowadays, a lot of the things like the mass migration into the West, so it's all in the footnotes. David Sumner, filmmaker, also says, I'm surprised more incels don't convert to Islam. I figured they'd have prime recruitment potential, so they would be more targeted by proselytizers. Well, I don't know if anybody surveyed that, but certainly there have been some prominent incels. I don't know that the word had been invented at that time, but Adam Gadon was a high up in Al-Qaeda, kid from California. He was a heavy metal guy, and he actually described himself as a revolting geek of mass proportions, which I think is sort of a synonym for incel. And he became a leading Al-Qaeda terrorist. So there have been some.
Yeah, and you've got you've got all those gingers in the UK.
That's right, yeah. And they're usually pretty chunky.
Mm-hmm. Chunky gingers. Sounds like an ice cream flavor, not like Ben and Jerry's chunky ginger.
Yep. That Jewish ex-spy in the chat says, Mossab Youssef just resurfaced after 5 months on Israel I-24, posted on YouTube. Do you agree with his assessments on Muslim Brotherhood Hamas? Big fan, ex-NCTC TTIC analyst. I have to admit, I like this guy a lot. I don't know him personally, and I can't say that I'm deeply familiar with his assessments on Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas. I would expect that I agree with them, but I don't know the details. Do you, David?
Well, I definitely don't know this recent thing, but I mean, he does say he deliberately says really provocative stuff that when he's called on it, he can explain himself better. So he had his famous I choose the cow, like where he said, if I have to choose between 1.6 billion Muslims and the cow, I would choose the cow, right? And of course, people call him on, how could you say such a thing? It's like, look, the cow does nothing but good. It provides milk, leather, meat, all this stuff. Okay. And so anyway, he'll defend it that way. But anyway, he's a guy who earlier when you were talking about Hamas and so on and the killing of protesters, it's very interesting How does Hamas deal with people in Gaza? Through extreme violence. It's like Hamas understand this is the only way to keep these guys in check. If we're not completely brutal with them, they're going to get completely out of control here. So Hamas understands we're in a part of the world where the only thing that works is being totally brutal. Then you got Israel trying to just take out terrorists, but Israel understands you kind of have to go hard with these guys. Nothing else works. Then you got the rest of the world going, no, peace is the only way. Just be nice to them, and their hearts will melt, and so everyone who's actually there understands that's complete nonsense. But Mossab Hassan Yusuf, he really seems to think, Robert, that the only way to deal with these guys is to be really, really brutal. So he has like the mindset of a jihadi who's just switched sides. But he still has that mindset, and he kind of knows what he's dealing with, and he's an advocate for being totally brutal with these guys.
Well,
and he
you
thinks
have
that's
to
kind of
say
the only thing that works.
the jihadis view the world in terms of strength and weakness, and they see the Western attempts to conciliate and compromise and have appeasement and so on. They see that as weakness. So it's a reasonable stance to take that if you are strong with them, they will get into line more than if you were weak. Flipper says Islam, religion of 1.8 billion followers and 1.8 inches. Yes.
It's a mathematical miracle.
Above it are 19.
I need to make that video, the real mathematical miracle of Islam.
Yes.
And I'll play the clip of Andrew Wilson and his 1.8 inch argument, and then say, and it's 1.8 billion Muslims. Coincidence?
The cat lady says, Houthis woke me up 3 a.m. and now I can watch. Thanks, Houthis. Yes, thank you, Houthis, I guess. All right, Rex Danger. I don't think Muhammad existed as we know. This seems useless as a polemic, though. That's a nice poem. I don't think Muhammad existed as we know. This seems useless as a polemic, though. They can't even grasp the Islamic dilemma. And the only ice cream they like is vanilla. Anyway, well, I don't know what to tell you here.
That and chunky ginger.
Yes. People have said, this is useless as a polemic. That to say Muhammad didn't exist, no Muslims will be deterred from jihad from that. And I think, well, I don't care in the first place. It's a historical question that's worth asking and worth investigating, whatever the reaction may be. But also, if a Muslim really did look at the evidence and realizes that Muhammad never existed and is just a bunch of myths and legends, why would he continue to be a Muslim? So how could that be an ineffective polemic? It's just that they don't look at the evidence. They just assume that it's all wrong.
So I will say, just based on what we know about Muslims, the thing that tends to be most effective as a polemic is embarrassing moral problems with Muhammad.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That seems to be most effective. But here's the thing. We know that works because that's been going on for a while. The Muhammad didn't exist. We don't know the impact of that yet because it's still pretty new. It hasn't worked its way. It hasn't worked its way out there. So we kind of don't know what the impact will be. You kind of just have to run with it before we actually see.
Look,
and that's why I'm in favor. That's why I'm in favor. That's why I'm in favor of like a two-pronged approach. A two-pronged approach where one person is is pointing out all the problems with Muhammad, and the other person is pointing out, man, your sources are garbage. We can't even know if this guy existed or not.
Yeah, I'm all for that, actually, and that's really been what I've done throughout all the last 20 years. But the thing is, it's worth noting that the Islamic apologists have no response to the arguments. I have invariably seen people, Islamic apologists, and even non-Muslims who reject the idea. Then they say, of course Muhammad existed. Look, there's Thomas the Presbyter talks about him, and Doctrina Jacobi. These are early non-Muslim sources that talk about a person named Muhammad. Now, they act as if this just is the killer to the Muhammad didn't exist argument. As if there is no comeback to that. They are not aware that actually the people who say Muhammad did not exist are well aware of those sources. In my book, Did Muhammad Exist?, I discuss all those sources. And so the idea that just naming them will show that Muhammad existed, it just shows you don't know the argument. No Islamic apologists have ever dealt with the real argument against Muhammad's existence. All they do is heap scorn upon it. And that indicates to me that they do not have a response any more than they do to Islamic history. Wrote another book, The History of Jihad. They have no response to the history. It proves that the understanding of jihad that we talk about is accurate, and then when they say that it's all about peace, that's never been the case throughout Islamic history. So they have no comeback to that. So they just ignore both as much as they can. Seems to me that what they try to ignore and heap scorn upon is what we need to press.
I have to point out, with them ignoring things, that's always the approach when they're being confronted by some new argument. It's we'll just use derision and so on and tell people, this is such a joke, what a stupid argument and stuff like that. And to offer a point, the response is never meant to be a serious refutation of the argument. The response is meant to keep Muslims from ever looking into it. You don't need to look into this. Don't worry. There's nothing. There's no one behind the curtain over there. Don't bother looking. And they've been like this forever on other issues. Back when one of their main arguments for Muhammad was his great moral character, we started pointing out Muhammad and Aisha. What did they say? Come on, everyone, don't worry. We know she was actually 18. We know she was actually 20. Don't listen to these guys. Don't listen to these guys. And we keep showing them sources. Oh, yeah, so they've got some sources, but there's so many more that say she was 18 and that she was 20. It's like, okay, show us one. Show us one of those. And we have to do this year after year after year before it finally works its way into more common knowledge. And that's when, of course, Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl, and it was good and right and wonderful and should be celebrated. So it takes a while, but it's like that with that. It's like that when they said, for years, they were saying perfect preservation of the Quran. And we're going, what are you talking about? Your sources are talking about verses being eaten by a sheep and entire passages coming up missing because the only people who had them memorized died in battle, and Uthman having to burn all these Qurans to cover up all the different. What are you talking about? And for a year, they're saying that there are changes in the Quran. Don't believe them. They're the kuffar. They're the liars. And Muslims, yes, they're the liars. They're the liars. It actually took like Hatun showing up with 26 different Arabic Qurans and actually putting them in their faces and say, is this the same as this? And then what do? They accuse her of printing up her own Qurans with differences and so on. That's what the accusation was for a while, because they couldn't get their minds around it. All their leaders have been telling them, you can't believe these people. They're all liars. And guess what? No, we were the ones telling the truth. So it was like that with that. It's like that with the scientific miracles. And so now by the way, because the person brought up the Islamic dilemma, saying they can't even grasp the Islamic dilemma. Right. The Islamic dilemma is new, too. It's not new in the sense of it's been around for decades and so on. People pointing out, hey, the Quran actually affirms the Bible. But as far as we're trying to make it popular now, we're trying to make it so that it's common knowledge. What are they doing? They're just kind of dismissing it, and they're giving very, very silly responses. Why? Because the responses aren't really meant to refute the argument. They can't do that. The argument's airtight. The responses are meant to keep Muslims from looking into the argument. So anyway, the point of all this is you can't tell just based on people's reaction now what's going to work. If you were to judge by people's reaction 15 years ago to Muhammad and Aisha, you'd say, makes no sense to bring up Muhammad and Aisha. They're not gonna pay attention to it. They'll pay attention to it if you make them pay attention to it. That just will take a while. So yeah, exactly. You can't, when something new has come along, a new argument that we're putting forward, you can't judge its effectiveness until it's really worked its way through. And yeah, they're going to resist it every step of the way. But
here, let's do this.
You got to be relentless.
I have not been one much for debating lately, and I've said many times on this show that I think that it's pointless because these guys are such liars and so on. But I'll throw it out right now, and I know that some of them are going to be watching, that I'll debate any of these guys on Did Muhammad Exist? Muhammad Hijabbed, Ali Dawa, Hakikaju, Any of them. You name it. If any of them want to come at me, we'll do Did Muhammad Exist? We can do it tomorrow.
Yeah, come at me,
Contact
bro.
me at director@jihadwatch.org.
Yeah, I'll gladly host. And here, Muslims, it's a crazy situation where I'll kind of be on your side. So you don't have to worry about me. You don't have to worry about me swaying things in Robert's favor.
Good idea. He argued for Muhammad's existence when we debated at what is it called? I'm sorry.
DebateCon.
DebateCon.
And Robert, you obviously at the end of the day don't agree with me, but can you even imagine a Muslim putting together a more powerful case for Muhammad's existence than what I put forward?
It was a very powerful case for Muhammad's existence. There is no more powerful case that could possibly be constructed. And so I imagine that if I ever did find a Muslim who would debate Muhammad's existence, that it would be a cakewalk compared to that debate, which everybody should watch on YouTube. All right, Muhammad the Flipper says Muhammad did damage, but his 1.8-inch member did not. Well, I don't think that's arguable. Arctic-based Salman Rushdie was actually canceled by Muslim students at a U.S. campus. Too Islamophobic, I guess. So much for free speech. That was not how I read the reports. The reports that I read said that Muslim students protested along with CARE, but that he actually withdrew. That he just did not want to fight the battle, which you can understand. The man's old, he's been seriously injured, and he's probably just tired of the whole controversy after living with this death sentence for now, 35 years. Mother Hulda says...
Yes, okay. I wouldn't normally be defending Arctic-based, since he is pure evil. But in this case, you could say canceled. You can have someone canceled who just sees the writing on the walls like, I'm not dealing with this. So that could be in the canceled category.
Okay. I don't know. Grumpy Granny, keep up the good work, guys. X. Okay. X. Daniel Jones says my leather straps lit up like when Momo saw Dia when I saw the stream was on. God bless you both. God bless you, Daniel. The Prophet of Convenience says there's been crime wave of Muslim Uzbeks in Japan. Yes, we've covered a few stories from Japan over the years here, and unfortunately they're getting to be more frequent. Ashley D says one of those symbol things. Thank you. And Azut Plumbing Corporation says, is it possible by neck they mean watermelon? What do you mean? When you meet the unbelievers, strike their watermelon?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand that.
I think that's just like there's this long tradition of just making stuff up to defend Islam.
Ah, well, yes. Aisha was 18.
It's like, oh, they get their 72 virgins. It's actually raisins.
Well, actually, the raisins thing is.
Oh, I understand that with this. Yeah, with the Syriac. Yeah, it's clearly not what the Muslim sources mean.
Christoph Luxemburg. The Islamic sources do not say raisins. Christoph Luxemburg contends that the Arabic Quran is a Christian text that is not in Arabic at all, but the Syriac text, and he repointed it based on that and saw that the virgins, the huris, are actually raisins, and it's a discussion of the fruits that are in the garden. And so it's about paradise, but it ain't about having have paradise be a big bordello the way the Quran envisions it. But in Islamic tradition, there's no raisins. And a lot of people misunderstand this. It's not the real understanding of the Islamic texts. The Quran is very clear that it's babes.
Unless you're talking about some raisins with swelling breasts that you bang for all eternity and deflower them.
Yes, Ethiopians with head like raisins, as Muhammad said. David Sumner, filmmaker. Leftists feel a strong psychological compulsion to harm their own societies. This isn't delusion. They know full well the damage they are doing. Yeah, I suspect it's because they're socialist internationalists and they want to create an international state, so they want to destroy the existing nation states, and they know that the jihadis are a good corrosive for that. Also, they like the jihadis because Muhammad said, as I just alluded to actually, obey your ruler even if he is an Ethiopian with a head like a raisin. Islam lends itself to authoritarianism, to obeying your ruler no matter what. So if you're an authoritarian leftist, you like that. Tesbot says, in your opinion, how many years before UK fully Islamic if nothing changes? Appreciate your work, by the way. What do you think? How many years do they have, David?
I mean, the percentage is still pretty low, like 6.5%, but that's skewed towards the main cities. The main cities are significantly higher, and you go out to certain rural areas, and then you have no one out there. But the thing is, as we've seen, they don't need 50%. I mean, back when they were like 3%, you were letting the grooming gangs get away with, raping and gang raping and so on, tons and tons of British girls because you were just terrified of being called names. So you don't need 50%. If things are this bad with 6.5%, not looking good for you. As far as like Islam actually taking over and going full Sharia and stuff, that seems to be down the road. It's just it's more this really messed up process of slowly losing all of the rights that you had before Islam came.
I'll go out on a limb and say probably by the end of this century, you'll see an Islamic state in all or part of the British Isles. Anyway, unless, of course, there's some huge change. Mort Rouge says, because of the verse regarding the striking of the neck, the United States Marine Corps leathernecks were created. Yeah, they were fighting the Barbary pirates who were jihadis. And so they were striking the necks. They actually wore leather collars to keep that from being a fatal blow. And a few years back, I don't know if you remember, David, we did it on this show. There was a whole line of clothing, I believe in France, that had this same kind of thing, where with special protection around the neck to keep you from getting beheaded during your morning stroll.
Yeah, I remember. We were thinking, how are we not getting in on this?
Yes.
Yeah, how are we not putting out our own line of body armor?
It's true. Could still do it. Holy Joe 3 says, I think David would enjoy the satanic verses by old Rushdie. He'd love Mahound
You thought wrong.
and the poet alongside Aisha and the great writing. Read. I tried to read it.
I tried to read it. I couldn't get through.
unreadable.
I couldn't get through 2 pages of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's not to say that it's not a good book.
Yeah,
It's
might be
just
great.
not my kind of book at all. There's all sorts of books that I would not. But I tried. It is not my kind of book.
Yeah, exactly. Same experience here. Okay, Mark H says you should have used azut in the poem. Maybe next week. It depends on how the inspiration comes to me. You understand?
Yeah.
When I begin to tremble and sweat and froth at the mouth and all the things that happened to Muhammad in the Hadith when he got the revelations. Sonny Erickson says, oh, hi, David. David Sumner,
Hey.
filmmaker. Why is beheading so prominent? Is it just seen as a particularly disrespectful way of killing, or what? It's in the Quran. It's in the Quran in 47:4 and 8:12. And so it's in the Quran, you do it. When you meet the unbelievers, strike the necks.
And I have to say, as far as methods of execution go, if you're actually like in a, guillotine situation, and it's like quick, beheading done properly can be a pretty quick way of execution. It's just, it doesn't, if the person is not cooperating and just lying there, it turns into a horrible bloody mess, and these guys are just stabbing at people's necks, and it's really messed up.
I remember when ISIS was in its heyday and they were putting out all those videos, they had a very stylized video of all these guys kneeling on the ground in the orange uniforms, and the scene of a bunch of hands reaching for knives, and they looked like steak knives. They were not very big. And that's going to take, if they actually did that, if they actually used those to behead those men, it would have taken a long time. They would have to saw through the neck for several minutes. And so it can be very cruel. And of course, cruelty and pain, that's hallmarks of Islam. John Davis has one for you. D. Wood, what is your PhD thesis, and can I get a copy of it?
My PhD thesis was on the Bayesian argument from evil, but I think you could look it up on the Fordham University Library website. You can find the people's dissertations.
Okay. And we have On the Road Again, Dizzy Face. Thanks, On the Road Again. And we have Ida Rogozin says, it happens almost every day here in Israel, in the Muslim and Bedouin community. Honor killings, I would imagine that's about, because we were talking about those earlier. Yeah, it is unfortunately quite common. Most of them unreported. Eileen Sloan, thank you. David Koshaba, thank you. Mr. Cranges, hello, keep up the incredible work, gents. Thank you. Kyle Mukian says, Starmer, Macron, and Carney are all pathetic cowards. Netanyahu is a real leader. I certainly would agree with that assessment. Bobby Spencer says, Bobby, my brother, do you remember the great Mayor Kahana? He knew jihad early on. I recently saw your speech with the JDL in Toronto. It was great. Thank you very much. You know, the only thing I remember about being in Toronto with the JDL was they had this guy, this former basketball player, this very tall. I mean, he must have been like 7 feet tall or something. And I told the joke, you know, a little boy's lost in the supermarket, and the manager comes up and says, oh, "What's the matter, little boy?" And he's crying, you know, and he says, "I can't find my mommy. What's your name?" "Mohammed." "And can you tell us what your mother looks like?" "I don't have any idea." That's the joke. And so I told this joke to this 7 foot tall basketball player, and I just remember him. He was laughing, and that was my experience.
Very rude. Very rude.
In Toronto. That was it. But yeah, the Kahana. Yeah, you know, he's a very controversial figure, and we don't need to get into all that. But there's no doubt he did see the jihad threat realistically. Jack Ray says Muslims pay attention to David Wood because he is the best of repeaters.
Yeah, that came up the other day of me repeating myself and repeating the same points over and over again. Like, David, why are you repeating yourself? Why are you talking? It's like, look, if you got it the first time and you hear me saying it for the 17th time, I'm not saying it for you. I'm saying it for the people who have to hear it 17 times before it actually sinks in, which there seems to be a lot of them. So
repetition is an important pedagogical tool. It really is a way to learn things, and people don't know. You know, at Jihad Watch, I've been doing Jihad Watch at jihadwatch.org. You may not know all the stories here. Once again, I'll say it. All the stories here are from jihadwatch.org. I report every day on jihad at jihadwatch.org, and then every Wednesday I gather together a bunch of the stories, and David and I talk about them. Now, in those stories, I put up a bit of the story and commentary. And many times when it comes to honor killings, when it comes to loving death, when it comes to child marriage, when it comes to things that come up again and again and again, I put the information from the Quran, from the Hadith, from various jurists or whatever's relevant, and I put it up again and again and again. And some guy wrote me not long ago and he said, your site it's terrible, it's so repetitive. And I think, well, the jihad is very repetitive, but people still don't know these things, so they need to be repeated. They do not know that this stuff is from the Quran, that these people are not hijacking Islam, that they're working from mainstream sources. So I keep repeating it. Once you show me you get it, I'll stop repeating it. Anyway. All right, we got Songs of Relief. I should know, but I don't. Do you guys know about Saint Murad and his new Quran translation? Saint Murad has a new... is that St. Murad? I don't know. Do you know about this, David?
Nope.
Don't know him. You should get my Quran, the critical
Official
Quran.
official Quran, Saint Murad translation.
Don't know it.
I see it.
You should read the critical Quran, which has a clear translation in it. Mir Iam says, Mr. Robert, I love you. I love you too, Mir Iam. Hussein, our friend Hussein Mashni says, Robert Spencer took Shahada on my channel. I did. That's absolutely true.
Alhamdulillah.
It was April 1st, 2025. You can still find the video. Salt says, how do you have peace? God bless you both. Peace comes from the Lord. John Davis says, who has a better claim for being a prophet, Muhammad or Jay Smith? Mo or
B.
Joe?
I didn't even have to hear the B, but B.
B. Jay Smith? Jay Smith, not J-A-Y Smith, Joe Smith. He has a lot of similarities with Muhammad. If you read Fawn Brody's book, No Man Knows My History, very striking. And this is the last one. Arctic Based says, I challenge Dr. so-called Wood to a mubahala. So there you go.
I accept.
Boom. We will all watch you. Songs of Relief. I did read the critical Quran by you, Saint Murad. Okay, thank you. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an exciting episode of This Week in Jihad. There's not likely to be any more jihad because we all know Islam is a religion of peace. But should there be, we will likely be here. And until then, you know what you need to do. 3 things. Pray, hope, and do not worry.